So there's this very comfortable multi-billion dollar lie that Hollywood has been trying to tell itself and us for that matter for the last 15 years or so. And that lie goes a little something like this. If you put Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson on a movie poster, then all of us, meaning the people who spend their money on these movies, will go out and flock in droves with our wallets wide open. And for a long time, that wasn't a lie. It was an ironclad, absolute law for box offices that if you had a dying franchise, all you had to do was inject a little bit of The Rock into it. And the next thing you know, it hits you just like an adrenaline shot to the heart, and you just watch your stock soar from there. But if you look past the studio PR machines and the curated Instagram videos of a man eating this inhuman amount of pancakes, you will start to see that the armor hasn't just cracked. Is shattering right before our very eyes. My central thesis here is very, very simple. The era of the untouchable, algorithm safe, engineered movie star is probably officially dead. And Dwayne Johnson, if he isn't the final one, he is one of the final monuments in that class and era that is left to fall. I think we are witnessing an unprecedented commercial identity crisis because modern audiences are completely rejecting, in my opinion, this manufactured corporate product in favor of genuine creative scarcity. Now, we know this weekend Disney threw a staggering $250 million budget at its live action Moana remake. And I'm sure they were expecting some type of victory lap, but that is not what they got. They are estimating to draw between $40 to $45 million, which for them is crawling out of the gate. And I think the last time I checked the numbers, Moana, the live action Moana, is about $43 million right now. So they're going to have a tough road ahead getting to that 250. And that's not even their break even number. But if you think this was just some type of minor speed bump or, just a single bad weekend at the box office for this film, then I think you may be completely missing what's going on out there because this isn't just a flop. Personally, I think this is a systemic rejection of what we are receiving from movie studios. And I think this, maybe not just this, but I think this will start the change in how things get green lit and sent out to us going into the future, at least for the next decade or so. I think what that does is prove that this franchise Viagra formula has finally run out of juice. Now, to understand how a brand this massive begins to rust, I'll say, and I'm speaking of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's brand, not Disney, we have to look at how this specific art type evolved in the first place. So let's go back and look between 2013 and 2019, and that's when The Rock pretty much perfected this template that made him the huge star that he is today. I think one of the reasons for his star is because he wasn't just playing characters. He was playing an extension of his public persona, The Rock, and that charismatic, indestructible, slightly deprecated alpha male. So think back to when Furious 7 dropped back in 2015 and it cleared $1.5 million globally. I think that was one of the first films that cemented in everybody's minds, at least, that his sheer presence alone was the intellectual property, or IP for short. He could take an incredibly risky counter-programming gamble like Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle back in 2017, run that up against a Star Wars movie and literally watch it leg out $1 billion. And that's worldwide. So families obviously trust his brain. He was the safe, dependable 4-quadrant choice, if you want to look at it like that. But in my opinion, I think Hollywood took the wrong lesson from that era. I think studios started to assume that us, the viewers, actually loved what the machine was giving us, when in reality, we all just like a little novelty. But the evolution of everything kind of trapped The Rock into becoming this corporate algorithm of sorts. Every single project, and I'm sure you all know what I'm talking about, they all start looking the same. He has his khaki shirt, we're getting a jungle setting, and it's just the same manufactured high stakes, or if you want to call them high stakes, but the same stakes in every film. And then the moment that he tried to break out of this self-imposed prison, that's when, in my opinion, the floor started to give away on. For example, look at late last year when he attempted something different. He attempted this massive prestige project, which was A24's Smashing Machine, which was a biopic about an MMA star or legend. Now, this is where you kind of have to look in between the lines because creatively, the critics loved it. I think it opened to a 71% on Rotten Tomatoes. It could be higher or lower today, but I think at the time it opened at 71%. And when you see Rotten Tomatoes, I think there's this false impression that they are the all be all and the catch all. And if they say it's good, and if they say it's not, it's not. And this could be further from the truth because the critics said this was a pretty decent film. But commercially, I think this completely alienated his fan base that he built up for all of these years because the film only made like a career low for him, I believe, $5.9 million opening weekend. And I think he has evolved into this corner where his core brand is too stale to excite people. But on the other hand, his experimental work like Smashing Machines, and I know he was casting some biopic about a guy who rides a motorcycle that comes out in a couple of years or maybe next year. But all of that aside, all of that is too jarring for him to sell because I don't think it's a bad thing from a creative and actor standpoint. But from a fan base, that's just not what they want from The Rock. They don't want that. But before we move into why the live action Moana is slightly triggering some alarm bells over there on Burbank, I want you guys to head down to the comments right now and let me know. Do you think this is just some temporary slump and, The Rock, he'll recover, his brand will recover, and everything will be A-okay, and I'm just overreacting in this essay? Or is this the end of, him at the height, at least? Because actors never go away. They just fade off and do other roles as they age. I just personally think that this could be one of the last times that we see The Rock's name, Dwayne Johnson, and then whatever film it is, like his name and his face is the draw. And if you want the absolute smoking gun in this decline, you really don't have to look any further than the anatomy of this whole Moana movie. And I'm speaking on the remake, the live action one, not the first two. The animated Moana 2 came out in late 2024, not even that long ago. And it absolutely dominated the box office. And why? It's because animated whimsy allows for a certain level of magical detachment. When you try to translate that exact narrative beat for beat into a live action movie less than 2 years later, I have to say that the corporate cynicism in it is pretty blinding. Like, have you guys seen some of the reviews for this movie? I personally have not seen a review for the Moana live action film of somebody saying that they liked it. The Guardian pointing out that his performance in the live action film feels like The Rock is on complete autopilot, mimicking a lot of the original movements from the animated film, like a piece of hollow software. The wrestler mannerisms, the raised eyebrow that he loves to do, the vocal inflections that we've all seen him do for years, they all feel a little bit grating when you have to translate it into the real world. And it makes the film seem, in my opinion, a little more calculated by a board of directors over at Disney rather than a director's choice. And honestly, can we just stop for a second and talk about the incredibly lazy, soul-crushing modern-day cliche where studios feel like the audience, us, won't have any idea that the only thing that you're trying to do is hold us upside down and shake us for all of our money that we have in our pockets. I know I am, but you guys let me know, are you just as exhausted as I am with the lack of imagination here? 2026 has proven to be so far, and this is a side note, the year of the damn sequel, and not every sequel has been good. In my opinion, it is just creative bankruptcy. People aren't creative anymore. I shouldn't say people. The people who are bringing us these films are not creative anymore. They're just regurgitating the same thing over and over and over and serving it to us on a hot plate, and we have to choose if we're going to eat it or not. I back this up by saying, look at films like the live action Lion King, The Little Mermaid, the movie that came out last year, I believe it was Snow White, that this Moana live action film is barely doing better than, and we know that movie bombed. But these remakes, one, aren't the originals, so nobody really wants to see them. People are just taking their kids because they have kids and maybe a little nostalgia. But everything in these films, in my opinion, look like depressing, hyper-realistic screensavers. If you look at it, it's like Hollywood took a look at the history of cinema and said, hey, you remember that beautiful piece of cinema over there? That piece of art that was perfectly captured, films like Footloose, that film captured the imagination of an entire generation. So you know what? What if we remade it? And not just remake it. Let's make it look like it was filmed in a damp basement with a budget of $250 million. I personally think it is an insult to the intelligence of the audience, and watching the live action Maui tank is probably one of the most satisfying reality checks that the industry could have in years. But the deeper subtext of this entire decline goes far beyond the walls of the movie theater. It mirrors a massive cultural and psychological anxiety and overconsumption of digital fatigue. And what I mean by saying all of those big words is the ultimate threat to Dwayne Johnson's thematic career isn't a bad script. And it isn't a harsh review. It's his own overwhelming ubiquity. Think about it like this. In 2026, you cannot escape The Rock. It's been a long time since you could escape The Rock. If you open your phone right now, depending on what you scroll, obviously, you're probably going to see The Rock trying to sell you some Terramana tequila, or you're going to see him with Papa Chew skincare. Or if you turn on your television, you may see him with the Zoa energy drink. Or you may just casually see him on some WWE programming from time to time. But he definitely gets brought up a lot. And I think that's the problem. It's the oversaturation of The Rock himself. Look at stars like Tom Cruise, Denzel Washington. The Rock doesn't have that type of star. And I think it's because they haven't broken the golden rule of stardom, which is basically that a celebrity requires an element, at least, of mystery and creative scarcity. And if you look at the Tom Cruises, the Denzel Washingtons, Zendaya, people that aren't always in the public spotlight unless they're, promoting a movie, their superstardom and the way people look at them and pine for them is completely different than I think the way we look at The Rock in today's world, at least. Think about it. How many mega celebrities do you see on a daily basis? And when an audience can see a mega celebrity for free on social media, quite literally almost every single day if you want to, doesn't the concept of a movie event kind of die with them? Because it's not an event when I see this all the time, or this person all the time. Why on earth would you, me, or anybody else take our families out, spend $80 or more on tickets and popcorn just to see the walking billboard pretend to be a demigod, when honestly we could just open our phones and just watch them for free? And I know it's not the same as watching him in the film, but it doesn't make me want to go see the film when I see this person all the time, just with a bald head instead of curly hair. But beneath that product placement lies a much more desperate industry truth, the complete death of the standalone star, maybe. During his peak era, Johnson's name could sell an original mid-budget concept like San Andreas, like Skyscraper. He didn't need a comic book or a pre-existing brand. He was the draw. And today, that independent gravity is completely gone. He has become entirely, in my opinion, too codependent on established studio IP and childhood nostalgia just to get a project greenlit. And I think this is where the cultural anxiety is kind of rooted, and it's in our collective exhaustion, with the constant relentless monetization of every single thing on our damn feeds. And on top of that, every single facet of our lives. I don't know about you guys, but I'm tired of being marketed to. Aren't you all tired of being marketed to? And in my opinion, The Rock's modern films feel less and less like art and more like promotional material for some type of global business portfolio, at least in the film world. And I personally think, just by this film's poor outing, that audiences are getting tired and they are starting to push back a little, or maybe a lot. And I think all of us are kind of pushing back against the corporate monetization of cinema. And I think the drop off in ticket sales, which the proof is in the pudding, is the direct, somewhat psychological symptom of all of that exhaustion from the audience, us. Now, this brings me to the ultimate end game and high stakes gamble that will define the legacy of this era. On December 25th, 2026, yes, Christmas Day, Sony is set to release yet another Jumanji film, Jumanji Open World. And this is The Rock's ultimate commercial retreat to safety, in my opinion. We see he's dragging back the old crew, the whole ensemble, Kevin Hart, Jack Black, Karen Gillan, and he's running directly back to the film that saved him, Jumanji, 10 years ago, when it seemed like things were starting to kind of slow down a little. But if you pay attention to the industry chess match that's happening behind the scenes, then you can probably see how terrified Sony actually is. So if you don't remember, Jumanji Open World was originally scheduled to come out the week before Doomsday. That's Avengers Doomsday and Doom Part 3. It was supposed to come out the week before. In my opinion, the studio panicked and shifted the date back towards the family-friendly movie day where a lot of families go out and see movies, Christmas Day, which is a week after Doomsday. And I'm not sure that's real smart either, because the whole goal in them moving the film was to not get ate up by the sales and the people going to see Avengers Doomsday and Doom Part 3, because most people are probably going to go see both of those at some point in that first weekend that they come out. And Jumanji coming out a week before and then falling to that, that's their second weekend, they were probably going to have a steep drop off. And if you want to see how films that have steep drop offs get talked about, look no further than Supergirl. Look no further than The Mandalorian and Grogu. Now, their drop off wasn't as bad as Supergirl, but a drop off none the least. But it's clear that the Jumanji movie is running away from Doomsday. And the takeaway here is absolute. The Rock and Sony are quite literally fleeing this box office fight with Marvel and Denis Villeneuve, and they're hoping that everybody gets Doomsday out of their system, go see it 2, 3, 4 times before Christmas Day. That way they can have a great Christmas Day and hopefully a good second week going into the new year. Because clearly they have no faith that if they put Jumanji out the week before Doomsday, that they would survive that head-on collision with those truly high-concept cinematic events. Now, if Jumanji Open World passes 800 million or so this winter, then everybody will spin this as a one-off or a two-off, because he's had a couple that bombed, but it'll just be a one-off. Moana, maybe we just put it out too fast. It's only been a couple years since we put out part 2. Our fault. It was an anomaly. But if Jumanji 3 or 4, whatever fucking number it is, because I'm not sure if they count the Robin Williams one or not, which is still the best one. But if it underperforms and gets swallowed up in its very first weekend, which I honestly anticipate will happen by Avengers Doomsday and Doom Part 3. And not to mention, there are a couple of other films coming out on Christmas Day that people may want to see. That's going to be Oscar season and everything else. So people are going to be at the movies. And it's not just going to be to go see Jumanji 3. Not everybody has a kid and not everybody's a Rock fan. But if it bombs, the narrative around him and his brand will shift permanently. I think if that happens, it will officially mark the historic transition of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson from the world's probably most bankable, dominant superstar into basically a nostalgic novelty act. And before we close, just to back that up, if you don't believe me, go look at some of the press behind his movie Red 1, how he used to show up to set late. That film didn't do great in theaters either. It didn't seem like he cared about it a lot. It didn't even do well on streaming. We also see that, to further back it up, he is doing a lot more, at least it appears, streaming films lately. So maybe the box office isn't working out for him anymore. And I truly believe that this Jumanji film that comes out at the end of this year will be the potential nail in the coffin to him being a box office draw. Or not, because it could always go the other way. So let's leave everything on this ultimate question. If Jumanji Open World fails to capture that old box office magic this Christmas, where do you guys think The Rock goes from here? It's not going to be back to wrestling. That ship is pretty much sailed. I mean, sure, he's an executive in the WWE or the TKO board. He runs his own football league. So it's not about money. I'm not talking about the money. Maybe from a box office perspective, I am. I'm not talking about his personal pockets. Those are good. Those are solidified. I'm talking about his status as a A-lister, somebody who can bring people out. Hell, can he even bring people to streaming? That would probably be a little bit easier than bringing people out to the theaters, because we already have all these damn apps at home. So sure, I'll pop on a Rock movie here. At least if I don't like it, I'm already home. But if Jumanji 3 fails, that'll be 2 flops in the same year. 2026. I think that'll be the end of any The Rock front of the poster box office. It'll be over. Now, I've heard that he has some type of plan, or I've heard that Marvel may be trying to cast him in the future in the X-Men saga as Apocalypse. I've heard that rumor. Maybe that's a good role for him, because you're not going to be the main player. You're definitely not going to boss them around how you bossed the DC people around on the set of Black Adam and finished destroying the old DCEU. And now we have James Gunn's DCU, because as soon as James Gunn took over DCU and Black Adam, that crap, get it out of here. It's over. So RIP Black Adam, at least the Rock's version of it, and it's probably going to be a very long time before we ever see Black Adam again, if we ever do on live action. But drop your theories down in the comments and let me know, where do you think things are going to go for The Rock from here? They could go up, they could go down. I'm not real sure, but I do think the box office Rock, I think is over. We may get a lot of The Rock on streaming, but I think it's over. Unless he joins something like Marvel or DC. Well, DC probably don't want him back. Unless he joins Marvel and takes on some type of one-off role, because that's probably all they would want him for. And of course, we know the Fast and Furious, 11 is coming back at some point in like 2 or 3 years, and all these guys will be 60 plus, and maybe not literally, but they'll definitely all be late 40s to late 50s plus. So we shall see what happens with the rest of The Rock's film legacy. But like I said, pockets, he's good. Never going to be bad there. Let me know what you guys thought about this video essay. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, but definitely let me know what you thought about this video essay, because if you liked it, I'll do more of them. And if you didn't, I guess not, but we'll see. And I appreciate you all for coming. Thank you for sticking with me. I know this was a little bit longer, and I will see you in the next one.